Hello, everyone, and welcome to the National Black MBA Association's Wednesday's webinar series. Thank you for joining us. Before we get started, I would like to take a moment to acquaint you with a few features of this web event technology. At any time, you may adjust your audio using your computer volume settings. On the right-hand side of your screen, you will see a Q&A window. To submit a question, type your question in the small text box at the bottom, and when finished, click the Send button. You may do this at any time during the program. All questions that you submit are only seen by today's presenters. Questions will be responded to in the order in which they are received and will be addressed at the end of the presentation. However, please note that due to time constraints, our speakers may not respond to all submitted questions. At this time, I would like to introduce you to our speaker, Dr. Nicole LaBeach. Dr. Nicole LaBeach is President and CEO of Volition Enterprises, Incorporated, a premier leadership, executive coaching, and organizational development firm headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia. Known as a master coach and corporate strategist for Fortune 500 companies such as Coca-Cola, Verizon, UPS, Hospital Corporation of America, and Manpower, Dr. Nicole leads the Certified Women Business Enterprise in championing the goals of executives, entrepreneurs, high-potential leaders seeking to maximize their leadership, achieve greater results, and leverage their influence and presence in the corporate arena. Welcome, Dr. LaBeach.
Thank you so much, Megan. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the webinar today. I just wanted to take a couple of seconds to thank so much the people that have been supportive to our firm in this process. We want to thank the National Board and leadership, the chapters across the country and headquarters in Atlanta for all of their support, and definitely a special thanks to Rita Parker, Paula Fontana, Gail Holmes, and Rolanda Jasper, and all who've joined us today. So welcome, welcome, welcome. And thank you for letting us know that you are serious about your development and your career trajectory. Welcome to Professional Coaching and 360 Feedback, difference makers in catapulting your leadership trajectory. As Megan mentioned, my name is Dr. Nicole LaBeach, and I'm excited to be here. Would love to connect with you beyond the webinar. So first things first, you can always email us at info@volitionenterprises.com and connect with me on LinkedIn. You can look for me under Dr. Nicole LaBeach, and I would be happy to accept you as one of our LinkedIn connections. So let's move forward into this webinar. Again, thank you for being here. Just to let you know a little bit about Volition Enterprises, Inc., we are a premier leadership, executive coaching, and organizational development firm. We are WBE, Women Business Enterprise Certified, and also Women Small-Owned Business Certified. For those of you who are not clear on what that might be, that means that our firm has gone through the due diligence and the process to be certified as a national diverse supplier for major corporations. And we happen to have a fairly large bench as firms are concerned in the small business arena. So we have a bench of about 12 certified coaches with the International Coaching Federation, and we have seasoned and experienced organizational psychologists. I am an organizational psychologist by training and found this firm about 16 years ago. So we've thus far had a pretty amazing track record working with all those in the C-suite, senior VPs, AVPs, high-functioning teams in companies that have been mentioned in the introduction. So if you look a little bit further into kind of what we do, by far you can reach out to us by email, but you can also take a look at our website to see some of the services that we offer. Some of the highlighted ones at the bottom include diversity and inclusion, process consultation, leadership assessments, and the like. But one of the things that I'm really excited about was the fact that the National Black MBA Association brought us in to do this webinar on professional coaching, because what we realized, having done it for as many years as we have, there are a lot of myths out there about whether or not coaching is for you, whether or not this is the right move at the right time. in your leadership or in the position that you're trying to go for at your firm or at your company. And we wanted to demystify some of those things to really help you understand the asset that coaching is for you, no matter where you are, at what level in your career at this point in time. So, as promised, we want to make sure we stay with the objectives of today's webinar. We're going to help you understand what professional coaching is, how it works, how to choose a coach. We're going to talk about the confidentiality factor, what's the return on investment, how much it actually costs, things that we think are going to be most important and imperative to you so you get an understanding of what the value proposition really is for coaching. And also, we're going to look at 360 feedback as it relates to what the assessment is all about, what the expectations are, and again, the confidentiality factor that you'll hear me talk about a couple of times because it's so critical and important. We really believe that coaching and the 360 feedback process is your next best career move. And we know that's a strong statement, but we believe it to be true not only from the experience that we've had out in the field with many professionals, but it's coming up more and more and more in critical conversations across the globe. It's not just a conversation in the U.S. So as we look at myths, let's talk about the huge big one, especially one that comes up a lot in the African American community. Coaching is a form of therapy. That's the myth. And unfortunately, that closes the door for many people when we start talking about getting the support we need in a professional context. Well, there's a shift if you start to think that it's therapy, and then you're like, well, I don't want to do therapy in reference to my career. The truth is, it's not therapy. Therapy is really a past-directed mode of support. It focuses on removing and managing any emotional blocks that you may have and healing any damaged emotions that you may be experiencing. Coaching is definitely not that. In the coaching space, what you're doing is looking at your future potential. You're looking at leveraging your growth, goal achievement, making sure that you have maximized your performance and your leadership potential, and really looking at having a clarity of purpose as it relates to your development. So it is very, very different. It doesn't look the same. It doesn't act the same. And despite what myths have gone on about whether or not they are the same, we can assure you what the professional coaching option brings to you in your career would be like nothing else that you've probably ever experienced in a positive way. So let's talk about feedback and professional coaching so that you have some clarity of understanding or more clarity, because some of you that are in the webinar today, you know a little bit more about it, and we recognize the knowledge is on a continuum. So one thing that you can be assured of is it is a confidential experience, and it's one-on-one. It's collaborative. So you may find some experiences that will offer group coaching. That happens a lot, especially if you're paying for it yourself and you want to get into a coaching context, but maybe what is being offered on a one-on-one level may be a little bit outside of your reach. You can go into a group coaching context, and the confidentiality and collaboration is still the same in that context. What it uses is powerful questioning and strategic action to help you leverage your goal and yield the greatest amount of success in what you're trying to do. It's often distinguished by levels. So you'll hear people talk about executive coaching and professional coaching sometimes synonymously, and you'll say, well, I'm not an executive, so does that mean that coaching is not for me? And the answer is no. You can be an executive and have executive coaching, and you can also be a high performer or a manager or director or VP and has professional coaching versus the executive coaching title. At this point in the industry, really there are no geographic boundaries as it relates to coaching. So wherever you live, wherever you are, if you're on assignment in another country, or if you're, local, you can access it from anywhere because you can access it virtually, which is really an amazing opportunity. With equipment, webinars, equipment, and technology like Zoom, you can really access coaching from anywhere. And the time frame, what we normally suggest is that you look at investing about 6 months into the coaching experience. Sometimes there are opportunities where you can go for 3 months, but for the most part, we're looking at a 6-month investment of time because it takes a while for you to unlearn patterns that aren't working, relearn some new actions that are going to help you leverage your goal, and actually activate that in real time. As it relates to, people have asked, well, how many hours does it take a week? That really goes to you and the coach. Sometimes it's 1 hour every week. Sometimes it's 1 hour every other week. But there are variations in trying to help you fit your schedule. As it relates to the 360 feedback process, some of you have heard about it as a multi-rater feedback or a 360 assessment. They're all the same thing. And if you think about being in a dressing room where there is a 360-degree mirror, you can see yourself from the top, from the bottom, and from all sides. That is probably the best way to think about a 360 assessment because it's looking at your leadership and how people experience you from all different sides. Everything is done electronically now, so there are no geographic boundaries with that. And the process usually takes from beginning to end about 3 weeks, depending on how well your raters respond and turn in the information that's been requested of them. Together, we believe both options are what are going to give you the maximum amount of leverageability as it relates to your career. Reason being, the assessment gives you an understanding that you would never have otherwise. We are able to really capture what people think you should know but would never tell you in the context of the 360 feedback. We're able to see what your strengths are, what your underdeveloped strengths or weaknesses are, and what are your opportunities to not overuse your strengths and to baseline the things that are getting in your way. Because people, by research, what we know is people tend to be very honest in these feedback opportunities. So it gives you information that you need to know, so then you can create goals that are most meaningful to you. So here's how it works. There's usually a 4-phase process, whether you are being offered a coaching opportunity by your company or you're seeking it yourself as a self-sponsored opportunity. The first thing is chemistry. We believe at our company that chemistry is probably one of the most important pieces. You have to believe that the person that is going to be your coach can best advocate for your success. So what that looks like, whether you're in a company or self-sponsored, you're looking for fit. You're looking to see if the coach or the firm is going to be the best fit for what you're trying to accomplish. You're looking for their credentials and how do they actually do the coaching that they offer. What's their methodology, and whether or not that methodology and the fit feels good to you for what you're trying to accomplish. Next, you're looking at contracting. So once you decide, okay, this firm might be great for me, I really want to go with them, now you're talking about what are the rules of engagement. So they're going to want to know why coaching, why now, what are you hoping to get out of it. You're going to get an opportunity to negotiate price, or they'll talk to you about what pricing looks like. So if you're negotiating for your firm as an HR representative, You're talking about how many people will get coached and what does that look like price-wise. If you're doing it for yourself, you're talking about whether your company will sponsor part of your engagement or whether you're doing it on your own. But this is the time to figure out what the actual contract looks like, and then you get to solidify your coaching agreement where you understand what's going to be required of you as the coach and what you should require of the coach in the engagement. Next phase is the assessment phase. So let's go back. You've gone through the chemistry session. You think this is the right fit for you. Then you've gone through and contracted, this is what we're actually going to do. This is what I'm agreeing to. Now you go into the assessment portion of the process. For some, self-assessments are a part of your process, and they can assess anything from temperament, your leadership capacity, your interpersonal communication, your emotional intelligence. There are so many amazing tools that we use now to really give you some self-awareness of areas that will help in your leadership trajectory and help you move up the ladder. The other thing is the 360 assessment. We've talked a little bit about that in a couple of previous slides, but one of the things that I want to mention here is that there are two types. The first is the quantitative assessment, which many of you have heard of, where you send the assessment out to your boss, your direct reports, your peers, and others. They take it online, usually takes them about 15 minutes, and then all of that information is aggregated for you to see how everybody sees you and experiences you in the leadership context. But the other side is qualitative. Qualitative is where we actually call the people that have been chosen and we interview them with critical questions. One I actually mentioned earlier. So imagine someone being asked, what are some things that you would like for this leader to know that no one would ever tell them? Imagine the richness of data that you get from people being able to honestly and anonymously answer those questions about you. And then the feedback session. So the feedback session gives you an opportunity at our firm. It's usually about a 90-minute session where we go through all of the information that has been gathered so that now you are in a great place to really highlight those 3 or 4 areas that are going to give you your greatest win in the coaching experience. But the one thing that I want to point out here that is critical, especially for African American clients, because there's often a wonder, well, if all of these things are going to be asked about me, is this going to go in my file? Is this going to go in my HR file? Who's going to see this information about me? And what if the information is not as positive? So there's a feeling of vulnerability, often because there just has not been that much exposure in the area. Well, the great thing is you own the data. Now, let me be more specific. You own it 100%. Doesn't matter whether your company pays for it. Doesn't matter whether they want to see it. By ethics, the data belongs 100% to you. You are not in any way required to share it. As a matter of fact, we protect you by letting them know that the 360 data will not be shared under any circumstance by our firm or by the participants. So this way, it never needs to be a conversation. And we are so protective of that we often will email the reports to a personal email address if that is what you desire, so that you are assured this information goes to you. The reason that is so important, everyone, is because you ask people these questions about you, but you're the only person that gets to see what we call the aggregate. You're the only person that gets to see what all 10 people had to say in one snapshot. So now, if you think you're an amazing communicator, you're the one that finally gets to see, do people that directly report to you see your communication differently than people that are your peers. You're the only one that gets to put it all together and see what it means. Next is the implementation phase. So if you are being sponsored by your company, what will usually happen is once the assessments are done, we'll have an alignment meeting with your boss and sometimes HR just to talk about why they felt the need for coaching was going to be a value add to your development. What would they like to see? What are some areas they think are going to be best to help you leverage your career? And then in the middle, we do it again to see what kind of progress has been made, because what we want to do is align the expectations they have with the expectation you have as the client. In that process, we bring together what you've received and understand from your assessment and what you really would like to work on that you see as potential goals for yourself, and that's when the coaching actually begins. From this development plan, you start to experience the accountability and the action that's really going to yield results from the coaching experience. And then when that is engaged for about 5.5 months, you know that you're getting to the wrap-up point, and then you can either renew at that point or you can really look back and see, wow, from beginning to now, here have been the things that I've been able to accomplish in the coaching experience. But one thing I want to highlight here is who chooses the goals. So this is another myth. You know, because my company paid for it, they decide what I work on. That's not exactly the way it works. Your company can suggest what you work on, and naturally we suggest that you try to be in alignment. But that does not mean that you do not get to choose the goals that you want to work on, because remember, this is a confidential process. So at the end of the day, you get to decide with the permission of the company, because the company recognizes though they're your sponsor, they don't know what the assessments have revealed. So they're really trusting you to work on the things that are going to leverage your best in this portion and season of your career. That being said, let's go into a couple of myths. No need to feel any guilt out there because we can't see you. We don't know if any of this applies to you, but it definitely, there are about 5 that come up often. One is it's remedial. So coaching is for low performers or those people that are in danger of losing their jobs. Our firm, we don't work with clients that are in a remedial situation in fear of losing their jobs. So we call it being on the bubble. If a company comes to us and says, you know, we've got this professional, we're really thinking about going in a different direction, but this is our last-ditch effort to keep them, what we say is we're not the best firm for you, because we believe, like many other firms now, that coaching is to leverage those that are on the right path, and your development dollars are going into someone you want to keep and someone you want to nurture, not someone you want to move in the other direction. So the truth is, that's really where the industry is. It's now about sharpening the executives that are in the executive seat right now and those who have a really good runway ahead of them that you want to invest in. The other myth is it's not really confidential. My company's paying for it, so, you know, I don't know about this. I don't know what this all means. Well, the truth of the matter is everything that we do in the coaching space is based on industry ethics. That's why you really want to go with coaches that are ICF certified by the International Coaching Federation, because there's a level of ethics that are being followed that says communication with your coach is kept in strict confidence, and information about the session is not shared with anyone. I wish we would have highlighted anyone and put it in really, really big letters, because that's really the truth. Another myth is all coaches are created equal. And there's so many to choose from, so there's no way to use criteria to decide who to work with. I just have to say it. That is just not true. I understand, and we understand that there are a lot of coaches out there, but when it comes to your career, you want to vet them appropriately. We are not all created equal. You want to make sure that you're doing some of the vetting that your company would do if they were solidifying coaches for you. So often they will vet who the coaches are that are going to work with their leaders and their employees. Well, you have the opportunity to do the same thing. It's okay for you to check references, success stories, additional certifications, chemistry meeting. You want to make sure you feel really good about that, and that there is ICF certification. About the only one of these that may at times be a little challenging is references. And here's why. What we do is very confidential. So because it's so confidential, oftentimes people will not feel the need to let anybody know that this is something that they're experiencing. So you've got some other indicators that will tell you whether the firm is on the up and up. For example, our firm is WBE certified. So as a women business enterprise, that gives you an indication that we've gone through some rigor with other governing agencies to let them know we really are who we say we are, and we're doing exactly what we say we can do. And they do a lot of that vetting for you. The other thing is all of our coaches are ICF certified, and most of them have more experience than you'd ever want to even think about. I think the last time we tallied, our firm in particular had over 300 years of experience together as professionals in this area. So those are things that you can seek out and search for to understand who you're working with. Then coaching is not for me. Hey, I can do better by myself. It's not going to add value. I've got this. I'm already successful. I'm not in a remedial space. I don't need it. The truth is coaching is really for everyone. But what we say is for everyone who's coachable. You have to really be a person that wants to invest in the process, and then you will get all that you could have ever imagined and then some from the process. And, you know, some really powerful people in industry are endorsing it not only with their budget, but with being clear about how it has affected them. So if someone from Google as high as Eric Schmidt and Bill Gates can say everyone should have one, and the best advice they ever got was from a coach, then that gives you an indication, wow, this is something that maybe I didn't know a whole lot about, but this is really opening my eyes to a new option for myself. As it relates to the data on this, other professionals across the globe are adding their 2 cents to the conversation. So in 2004, though that seems long ago, remember the area of coaching is really fairly new when you think about it. And in 2004, there was this massive study that said there's an ROI of almost 6 times what it costs, and that was coming from people who were experiencing executive coaching or professional coaching in industry. And then in 2012, PricewaterhouseCoopers and the Association Resource Center came in and said it's even greater. What they found is that people are reporting amazing and stunning amounts of ROI for the experience because, like I've said, it's a very unique experience where there's someone that's advocating for you that's skilled and able to help you move forward on your goals, that knows more about you in intimate detail than probably anybody else that knows you in a professional context. And then there's a myth that companies aren't really utilizing it. You know, I haven't really heard about it, or I've heard about it here and there, but I don't really think it's a big deal. It's not really worth investing in coaching for myself. And you know what? The cost of it's way out of my league. That is truly false false, and it's one of the reasons we even wanted to do the webinar today with the association, because what we found is in 2004, $1 billion was recorded to be spent on coaching worldwide. In 2012, $1 billion every year. So you can see there is a huge marked difference between where we were and what's happening now as it relates to actual expenditures on coaching. So as it relates to cost, let's talk about that, and I want to spend a little bit of time here. So there is a huge difference between corporate-sponsored estimates and self-sponsored estimates. Corporate-sponsored estimates, when you look at them, don't get sticker shock and don't look at it and say, oh my gosh, this is really out of my league, because there are so many factors that go into whether or not a company pays a certain amount for coaching. How big the company is, how much they've budgeted for coaching for all of their leadership, what the responsibilities are of the leader that they're seeking to get coaching for, what type of return on investment they're looking for, how specified the coaching needs to be, what level the person is on, how much they've spent for coaching in the past, how many people are getting coaching at this present time so that they can negotiate the best rate. There are a lot of things in that pool that have to be considered. So here are some conservative estimates, and it's hard to even make an estimation like this, but I wanted you to have an idea so it still wouldn't be this huge mystery for you. Self-sponsored estimations are very different. What we find here at our firm is we will have people that will reach out and say, my company doesn't do it, or I'm at the director level and only people in the C-suite get this option, or I'm at the AVP level and I want to see myself move to a VP possibility within the next 2 years, and I believe this is going to be helpful for me. So I'd like to go it alone. I would like to invest in myself. What can we work out? What can we do? And I'll tell you, from where we sit, we look at that as that's an amazing opportunity, because here's a leader that has moved out of the pack and they've said, this is serious business. I want to invest in myself, and we want to partner with them. So there's rarely been a situation where we could not work something out, either on a one-on-one coaching basis, a group coaching basis, or at times we'll have packaged programs that professionals can be a part of. So in those contexts, it could be anywhere from a 20 to 30% reduction, and sometimes more depending on the dynamic. So what I would say for you, all of you that are on the webinar, advocate for yourself. With your company, you now have some information, some intel, to be able to go to some of the folks that are in positions of power and say, well, is this being offered? How do I get on the HIPO list for this kind of development opportunity? Or I'd like to go it alone. Can I have any support with training and development dollars? There's so many ways for you to advocate for yourself, but it's something that you should definitely consider. One of the things that I want to mention lastly in this particular bullet, in partnering with the National Black MBA Association, we were really clear that they were vested in making sure that this information became information that we were all talking about as members. So we wanted to make sure that we offered the opportunity. There are some of you that are in this webinar that are saying, this is what I've been thinking about, but I didn't know where to start. I didn't know where to go. I wanted to have a strategic conversation with a professional that's outside of my company that could partner with me in this capacity, but I didn't know how to find one. Well, we're here. We would love to help you in any way that's possible that we could do ethically and do in excellence. So you'll notice in one of the boxes that are in the middle of your screen, there are web links. There are 2 web links in particular that you can activate in this webinar. The first is one for 10-minute conversation one-on-one with me, where we can talk about what you think your best next moves may be. We'd be happy to let you know what we do, if there are any things we believe can help you in that 10-minute call. And also, if there are others that we work with that may not be at our firm that we think will be a best fit for you. This is about you meeting your goals, so we want to do that as effectively as possible. So if you click on that link, you can actually get on my calendar today. And the other is a one-time strategy session. We've reduced that session by $100 so that those of you on the call, if you would like to participate, you can also get on my calendar as well, and we'll have a one-time strategy session to help you figure out what may be some best next moves for you. So that being said, let's talk about the benefits. So, companies are not spending $1 billion a year on something just to say they're kind or they have nothing else better to do than to squander $1 billion. That's not how this works. We know that it has to be of benefit to them to make those dollars and cents count. So in a nutshell, here are the areas that companies have found really speak to their ROI as a company sponsor for coaching and assessments for those who they've, gone the extra mile to support. As it relates to you, let me just say one of the hardest things that my team and I had to do was to diminish the list of benefits. Seriously, we had about 4 slides, I'm just going to be honest, when we started. And we said, okay, nobody wants to see 4 slides on anything, so we kind of broke it down. Some of the benefits that you can look forward to is a greater ability to really understand what your passion, purpose, and success possibilities are. Focusing on your goal strategies. Remember, a lot of times we all have goals, we have things that we want to accomplish, but it's that action and advocacy and accountability that makes the difference. Changing behavior patterns that don't work for you. So they're a pattern. There's something that you do readily and often, but you don't really know how to break it. If you could break it by yourself, you would. Coaching is a perfect context to do that. Improving your leadership and interpersonal skills. Like I said earlier, you will find a lot of things from the feedback that you get and from the self-assessments that we can do that will give you a clear understanding of things that you do as a leader that you may not even be conscious of, and whether or not they really work. Because remember, a lot of times what we're doing is we're using assessments that have been validated on groups of other people that will really tell you if this is something that is warranted, wanted, or going to help you in the leadership context at your company. And you get to avoid some potential derailers because you get to identify what they are ahead of time and then see if you're walking down a path that's not going to work well for you. The other is increasing your scope of influence and visibility. We find that when you are in a coaching context, you now have a thought partner and a strategic partner that helps you to really look at networking, helps you to really look at where are your options for visibility that are going to highlight you as a leader, highlight you as a teammate, and show those who need to see you on the radar what you're really made of and what some of those leadership assets are that may not have been utilized to the fullest. It's going to help with navigating corporate politics. So you have a greater ability to really see what some of the potential corporate pitfalls in politics may be so that you don't walk into them, and how to better manage and implement change as a leader. The other thing is achieving personal and business breakthroughs. I would say it gives you a greater ability to achieve those breakthroughs, and also another one is to achieve better boundaries. So you can really start to see from the feedback, from the self-assessments, from the goals, and from what you've gotten in the alignment and mid-alignment meeting, exactly what your opportunities may be for next steps. It helps greatly with how you can best manage others and manage yourself, because it becomes like an awareness station that you've never been to before. That's what a lot of people, they don't articulate it that way, but you'll hear often clients say, I had no idea, or wow, that makes a lot of sense. That brings a lot of things together for me now. Or, you know what, I wouldn't have thought about it that way. I didn't know that that's how people were experiencing me. I didn't know they saw that as a strength that I never even pegged to be a strength for myself. And sharpening your decision-making skills. We've worked with professionals that we've helped get promoted, that we've helped move a couple of notches, because one of the things that's interesting about what we do is that we don't seem to ever lose a client. And what we mean by that is we work with you for a season, but what ends up happening is sometimes 5 years later, 3 years later, 4 years later, we may have a client that may reach out and say, hey, is there a way that I can have a strategy conversation about something that seems to be critical right now, that I need to make the right move, and I need a thought partner that's going to be confidential, that's an advocate for my best good, that can help me think this through. And we are happy to do that because we want our clients to win, and we understand that that sometimes is needed to be able to help people move forward. So I don't know if you remember me saying this, but I want to explain to you, when I said there's no other professional context like it, I really, really mean that. I've been a coach now for about 18 years, and I found this to be true. It's not like a spousal relationship. It's not like a mentoring relationship. It's not like a regular accountability relationship. It's different because you and your coach will be the only two people that know how all of the information that has been pulled in for you look as it relates to you. You will be the two sole people that understand that 12 people sat down and answered questions honestly about you. And here's what it all says when it comes together. So it's not just your self-report. It's what people are also giving as a report on you. And now you and your coach get to sit down and mastermind what your development plan is going to be based on where you see yourself. There's really no other relationship that's like that. The advocacy that you experience and the safety that is experienced in that space is really pretty tremendous. One of the reasons it's not like any other relationship is it partners on what's important to you. Yes, your company can sponsor it, and they can say, you know, one of the things we think would be a good leverage point for Dr. LaBeach is her communication. But at the end of the day, you are the only person as the professional that knows what you really want to see happen in your career, how you want to move yourself forward at this company, what assets you want to make sure that the company can experience from you as a professional. So you get to decide what's important to you based on all of the information that's given to you and your coach. Again, it's confidential. So your insight and awareness, you're not alone because there's someone else that knows, and because there's someone else that knows, they can hold you accountable even when you have those points of feeling like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. I'm feeling a little shaky on whether or not I've mastered this skill and can now go out there and do something with it. You have someone that can support you, that's been on the journey with you, that can even say, well, you know, that's something that comes up in your profile that you might be a little, you know, fearful of. So what are we going to do to move beyond that fear and move into action. The other thing is it reveals the truth on how others experience you. It's not just about asking people, what do you think of my leadership? It goes so much beyond that, because when you ask a person what they think, they tell you what they think, but they usually censor. The challenge is people usually remember you by how they experience you, how you've made them feel. So what this gets to is that underlined information that normally as a professional you just can't get to by asking the fundamental questions. And then what we found is it's like no other, because it's really honing in on action, goal achievement, and business results. How you affect business results through your actions, and making sure that we're focusing on goal achievement that is going to move you forward and take you to the next level. And then last but definitely not least is that it supports critical moves for your advancement. We've talked about politics. We've talked about managing your boss. We've talked about managing, the things that are important to you, utilizing your leadership assets in a way where they're noticed, but given the right mix of humility and professional appropriateness. All of those things come into play so that you really can understand how to best leverage critical moves that move you forward. So that being said, I want to open the floor for questions. What I'm hoping we'll be able to get out of the question portion is that you can really ask the questions that you want to know. I happen to be the president and CEO of Volition Enterprises, so I don't know everything, but if there are some things that I can give you information right now, I will do so. And if not, the 10-minute one-on-one call is really for you, because it's your opportunity to have me one-on-one in a confidential context where you can ask me anything that you want to ask me, and I'll do my best to steer you in the best and right direction. So that being said, Megan, can we open the floor up for questions at this time?
Yes, and as a reminder, the Q&A is located on the right-hand side of your screen, and to submit a question, type your question in the text box, and when finished, click send. So it looks like our first question says, if coaching isn't great for people on the bubble, if you're between jobs, is it best to wait until you find your next position to get coaching?
No, no, and no. Get it now. Now, and now. The reason we don't often do on the bubble is because of the historical context of coaching. For a long time when coaching started, people really thought this was only for those who were in a critical crisis state. And what started to happen was the industry really started to move away from that, because we really were in the space of leveraging people's talent and helping people move forward. But if you are in a transition, this is a perfect time for you to get the advocacy that you need to make sure where you go next is exactly where you want to be. And we take those kind of clients all the time. We get excited and see it as a major opportunity to help you land in a place where you're going to be able to soar. Because, naturally, the reason people are displaced out of a job is not always because of poor performance. There are changes happening all over the place. So what we want is people that are coachable, that want to make their next move really count, and we want to help them do it.
Okay, great. Thank you. So the next question says, how do we prep for the strategy session or the one-on-one call?
You just show up. The only thing that we require you to do for that session is to click on the link and make sure that you are taken care of as it relates to the fiduciary responsibility. Then what happens next is we will send you a quick email. I believe What's been secured on my calendar is 25 slots. It's critical. If this is something that you want, please go after it and do it. Get one of the spots so that this way you get what you need. And all you need to do is show up and follow our instructions. We will connect with you via email and tell you if there's anything else that we need from you, usually not. You show up to that session and we connect in making the right things happen for you. We've been doing those kind of sessions for a very long time, so they usually work out to be really beneficial.
All right. So our next, okay. Can you describe how a group coaching situation looks?
So what we do from time to time is we bring professionals together that are usually at the same level. So I'll tell you, one of the things that we thought about for the National Black MBA Association is creating a group coaching context for new careerists and for people that are high potential, but they may not be in the executive ranks. And what we basically said was based on the folks that come into the 10-minute one-on-ones that are complimentary in this webinar, we would see if we could create that kind of group. The group coaching context looks like people that are at a similar level to you coming into a virtual room to be coached on topics that are relevant for that group. So we usually ask, what are some areas that you believe will help you leverage if you had some better tools? The group is able to ask questions and be coached in real time in that context. And usually we make sure that the groups are anywhere between 8 to 10 people so that it's not so big where you can't really have honest conversation, and the facilitation and the coaching of it gives you information like critical, there may be critical articles that give you information on how to manage your boss based on the context and the level that you're in the organization and how to use those tools best. And then you get to ask questions about your particular circumstance. It usually meets probably once a month virtually, and the cost is a lot lower so that you can experience coaching without the one-on-one context that might be a little too far-reaching for you.
Okay, our next question says, I am currently in my MBA. How can I accurately ask or even look for a coach?
We would be happy to help you. I would say sign up for the 10-minute call and talk to me so that we can make sure we set you up properly. Anybody that is in this webinar or hears the webinar and you feel like you're a new careerist and nobody's going to pay attention to me because I'm not even in my first big job yet, we will pay attention to you. This is the reason why we did this, is we wanted to give people access at every level in the organization. So we will field calls from the executives just like we do at Verizon and UPS and some of our other clients. The same way we do that, we will field those from this platform because we're committed to the MBA Association on this. I'm a member and I believe in what we're talking about, which is one of the reasons I did it rather than having one of our associates do it, because we're really trying to diminish this gap. There is a gap, you guys, for African Americans that experience the wealth of what coaching can offer, and we're committed to trying to diminish the gap. So sign up for a 10-minute call, and let's see what we can do.
All right. Our next question says, how do you relay to your manager that you need them to coach you?
You know, one of the things that would be imperative is letting them know what you hope to glean or what you hope to gain from a coaching experience with them. I'm believing that what you're asking is you want the manager to be your coach. Well, one of the ways you may do that is by telling them what coaching might look like to you. Because some managers, they don't have a a paradigm that they're using to coach people that work for them. So sometimes you have to say, hey, one of the things that I would like to know on a monthly basis is how I'm doing on these criteria. Or can we have a one-on-one every other month or every quarter that coaches me along the things that might help me to bring more to the table or might help me to do a better job in leading my team. So if you're not getting coaching from them and you're having to ask for it, you may need to give them a little bit of criteria so that they can do it effectively.
Okay. Our next question says, what recourse do coachees have if they believe their coach is not meeting the agreed upon objectives?
Because we're not a legal entity, we move a little differently as it relates to ethics. So it's not like hiring an attorney where you can go to the bar or anything like that. But I can definitely tell you, if you vet them properly, coaching firms, I can speak for ours and like our own, we work with referrals heavily. We've had a practice now for about 16 years, and it's heavily based on referrals, even though it's so confidential. When people are experiencing amazing things, they tell other people. So what you can almost be assured of is they want to be fair and equitable. They don't want you to walk away with a horrible experience. So you make sure that you have a coaching agreement that speaks to what your expectations are of them and what their expectations are of you, so that if things seem to go south, you can go right back to that agreement and say, where are we based on what we agreed? When those things are set up properly, you usually end up doing okay.
All right. You mentioned qualitative and quantitative pieces to coaching and that the info belongs to you. My company offers 360 coaching, but I have never seen the results. Are they supposed to provide us based on what others have said about you? If so, how do we get this info?
I can't speak to how it works at your company, but if they're doing feedback on you, you're supposed to, at minimum, be able to see what the feedback says, number one. But if you're doing it in a coaching context, 100% you get to receive the feedback. And I'm not sure what the context would be where you wouldn't own it, because 16 years, I've never experienced that. I don't know what that is, but 10 minutes, I'm willing to talk to you about it because I want to make sure you get the right information. I
Great.
think we can take the last 2 or 3.
Oh, okay, perfect. All right, so if coaching is offered at your job, is it beneficial to use the company even though you know the coach personally or an outside firm?
That's really up to you. Sometimes using a coach that you know personally is not a problem, as long as you guys have been really clear on what the ethical guidelines are going to be and how you're going to conduct yourselves in this context, and make sure it's not a conflict of interest before you move forward so that you secure yourself appropriately. I do see that someone said, how can I schedule the 10 minutes? There is an active link in the webinar. Feel free to go ahead and click on that. And I think what I'll do as well is I'll make sure that the link is also given to the right people and see if we can send it out in an email. But I really suggest that you click on it here so that as space is available, you get a spot. Go ahead.
All right. Looks like we have 2 more questions. As a recent grad and experienced professional, I am seeking new opportunities, not a career change. How best to proceed?
Oh, definitely. Set up a 10-minute with me. We can hash that out pretty quickly. Absolutely, we can hash that out pretty quickly.
All right. So
the link is not live for me to select. The link is not live. I don't know. Let's see what we can do to troubleshoot that, Megan. Go ahead.
All right, for our last question, it says, I just completed my master's degree, and there are opportunities for advancement if you are a good communicator. For someone that has a hard time with communicating, would a coaching opportunity like this help me with becoming a good communicator?
110%, no doubt. No doubt about it. None whatsoever.
Sorry to interrupt, but you do have to click on the link that you would like to suggest or like to go to, and then click Browse To, and it should take you right to it.
And if you are really having problems, put your information in the chat, and we'll do our best to make sure that you get what you need.
All right. So on behalf of NBMBAA, I would like to thank our presenter for a great program and for you, the audience, for your participation in today's event. So this concludes today's program. Thank you so much for your time, and have a great day.